Right, we are back with this week's episode of the Slot One Super Podcast. This is episode 52, which is technically our year long podcast, I guess you could say. But it's we've had a couple weeks skip, so technically it's not the year anniversary. But regardless, it's a big episode. We're in Worldwide Celebration Part 2, so
Yeah.
very exciting stuff here. Of
Mhm.
course, I'm joined as always by the Mass Ningen here. We are, of course, two of the co-hosts for the Slot One Super Podcast. And we have our special guest, DATRUTHDT. Hi, Truth.
Yo.
Hello. Hey, guys. How's it going?
We have a lot of fun stuff to talk about today, especially something that has stirred up very recently in the community about this celebration. But before we
stuff.
continue on to all this shenanigans, if you do want to help support the podcast and you have any questions, comments, or shout outs, either for me, Ningen, or Truth, where I'm sure a lot of you guys have questions for Truth, all donations and super chats will be guaranteed to be read out at the end of the show. And we appreciate any support you guys give, even just by typing in the chat. But again, we'll hop into, I think, the big topic of this week, which is the Part 2 LRs. Again, I think all three of us, I assume, have had some time to use them a little, or at least, obviously fully look at their kits and see what they're doing. So we're going to start off with, the main guy, the theme of the celebration, BROLY. So I think there's been a lot of talk about this BROLY either being underrated or not good enough. So I'm going to start off with Truth, because I think, I haven't really seen your opinions about this in BROLY specifically, because I know you've been waiting to really use him. I'm not sure if you had the time to really fully look into him. I don't think you have just yet. But what are your thoughts now if you were actually able to at least try him out?
I'm not super sure on BROLY yet. I'm gonna want a lot more time. Like for me to get a consistent, solid opinion on him, it would be a couple of days from now, probably. But I'm looking at him, and it's you think about these teams that he's gonna be on, movie bosses and uncontrollable power and stuff like that. It's just full of these killers, like Salmax and Tech BROLY and the other Tech BROLY. They do so much damage. So a character that's not just damage is exactly what the team needs. But I don't know if they did a good enough job of making this guy able to handle slot 1 against the biggest bosses. Right now, a lot of these bosses, they mostly just super instantly, right? You see Goku and Frieza, Bulma, the end of the Salmax fight. In my experience, Evolution Blue Vegeta, he does tend to kind of super all over in that one fight, the Blue Kaioken and Evolution Blue Vegeta fight. But a lot of them, they super right away. So it's you could have a bajillion, zillion, trillion, million, fulfillion defense after you attack. That's cool. But that's not going to help you with these bosses that they have super right away. And we've seen a ton of those this year. Beast does it. Goku and Frieza does it against Cellmax at the end of the fight does it. And I think that this BROLY would have been more suited if he was just invincible defensively in slot 1. Now, it's more so that I think he's going to have an issue against Goku and Frieza. It's not something I've seen myself yet, because I don't have them full link level 10 and ready to go. But that's just what I'm thinking I might think. And then, of course, having the domain kind of issues and the revive and stuff like that. I think that there's going to be a big up and down performance for BROLY compared to just Gohan, who's just going to kill everything in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, from what I see with BROLY, he's 300k-ish defense start of turn, just because again, he gets the 100% raise on his both his 12 and 18 key, right? So it's he does get quite a considerable jump once he actually super attacks. But the thing is that the thing about this BROLY is, again, he's all utility and defense, right? Which the revive is pretty cool. The domain could be nice. But
Let's jump in real quick.
Uh-huh.
I think the utility, when people say utility, a lot of times that feels overrated to me, because I think of people saying that about Metal Cooler, and I never found his utility to be as crazy as some. I didn't.
Yeah, I think when people talk about utility, they talk about stuff that isn't just tanking or doing damage, which I see the point there, because I mean, BROLY has some form of healing with him. I actually, I think the healing is okay. I just think everything he's doing kind of feels spread out, and he's not necessarily good at doing any particular thing, right? He's not like a god tank, I think in most case scenarios, especially against these big boss supers, where again he's at like 300k defense, even with guard and 60% reduction, only having like that 300k defense range, I feel like can only get you so far, right? And then it's like the turn 5 revive is probably the best thing he has in his pocket, but I mean, like outside of that, everything else, I'm like he's just doing good, but not like great at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would
I know
agree.
you wanted to say something, Ningen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of experience. I didn't manage to pull him with my summons, so I have tried him out using him as a friend lead. And I think one of the things that you notice straight away with him is, as Truth was saying, he's not very good as a slot 1 unit. So I feel like his best team, or like his best setup, is going to be running him on the double tech Broly team. So when you're running him as a friend lead for that team, if you don't have him, that means you only have one of the tech Brolys, and he's obviously kind of your main go-to slot 1 unit on one of the rotations, at least at the start. But then it means you kind of don't really have anyone else to be a super good slot 1 unit on the other rotation, unless you're going to rely on, like early on you can kind of rely on Cellmax potentially. You don't really want to be relying on Harudagan. My RNG luck with him is not great, so yeah, going into events and just getting immediately slot 1 supered with him is never good. But yeah, I mean, I think he's a fun unit. I think the utility is good. He's good for the team because he's not just another unit that drops loads of big attack stats and doesn't do anything else. Like, the team has a few of those units that can bring crazy damage, and then he has some interesting things to provide to the team, right? Like, you use his domain straight away, then it runs out, then you can use AGL Broly's domain, you get the revive off with him, and then he's giving 60% support, which is a pretty significant amount. But I definitely do have, as much as I like the unit and I think he is fun to use, there's definitely a few nitpicks with his kit, right? Like, I know most people are quite disappointed that, especially for a Broly unit, he doesn't have any sort of like built-in additionals or anything like that. So like, I used a Rainbow Friend in one of the runs earlier, and he did like a 30 million attack stat on turn 1, but then that was it. Like, that's the only attack that he does, where obviously like all the other Brolys on the team are dropping multiple attacks in 1 turn. And then the other thing I think that maybe, I mean, I don't know if they would consider that to be too OP, but then you look at what the trio are doing, so I guess maybe not. But I feel like his support that he gets post-revive should have been for 2 turns, because like, if you are running double leads of him, only one of them can get that buff anyway. And so he's giving that 60% support, but only for the turn that he's on. So I feel like that's something that maybe would have made him just that little bit better, right? To have that full coverage for the team support. I know the trio are giving mostly defense as their 2-turn thing, but like, I don't know if that would maybe make him a little bit too OP. I feel like not, because you have to get through 5 turns and get the revive to then get it, whereas the trio are literally giving everyone that massive buff for 2 turns just by existing, basically. So like, someone posted a meme, I think I saw it in my Discord, it's probably been posted in other places as well, where it's like a gymnast doing a very simple like forward roll, and it's like super class unit gives ridiculous support to passive like by existing, and then the extreme one is like arrows and lines of like jumping all over the place, like turn 6 revive, must do this first, and then like give support, right? So it seems very much the super versus extreme thing kind of in play here again. But I mean, he's a fun unit to use. I think he's cool, but I definitely think he's certainly not as crazy as when we first, like, I don't know if it's, I try not to fall into like the whole new unit like recency bias thing, but he was one of those units that when we watched the live stream like actually happening and we saw his like massive passive on the screen, I started reading through it and I was like, oh my god, this guy like could be the best unit in the game. And then when you sit down and like actually piece out like how his passive works and everything, and then see him on the team, he's definitely not as good as I originally thought, but I still think he's really good. So I'm gonna have to use any remaining stones we get before the end of the celebration to keep going on the banner and see if I can actually get a copy of him. But yeah, he's certainly a fun unit to use, I will say.
I think again, you just look at his kit and it's like, compared to especially the other 3 characters in the celebration, they're very easy and free. I think there's like very little restrictions. While this guy, it's like there's a lot of specific things he wants to do in specific circumstances, and it's like, yeah, he fits a role that the team needs, but there's a lot of stuff you have to like kind of get through at times in order to get some of his passive. Like a good chunk of his passive is literally based off of him getting his revive off, right? So I kind of don't like that sometimes, where it's like it almost feels like you want to like push the revive
Mhm.
when it should be a thing that you just get if you need it, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Like it feels like a lot of his passive, like the defense when receiving an attack, the supports, even some orb changing, like that can allow him to heal more. A lot of that is locked behind that revival skill in the first place, which is only it's his 5th turn, right? It's not turn 5 from the
Yeah.
start of battle. It is
Yeah,
it is
exactly,
5th
yeah.
turn. Yeah, so especially if you're running him on double tech BROLY lead, you get him on slot 7, then it's like, well, you're not gonna get the revive. Basically, it's not gonna be up most of the fight. I feel like again the healing is like okay. I think early on in fights, which is it's fine because like when he has a domain up, that's going to be early on in fights. Usually, he could slot in slot 1, but like the issue isn't necessarily, I think, like early on in fights. It's like at the end of fights where you would kind of want maybe a slot 1, like maybe when Tech Broly's passive might run out, or you don't have as many options for slot 1, especially because like Tech Broly is already more than good enough early on, like in the first few turns, to be your slot 1 character. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
But
you said, you don't want to, like, I did it for the showcase purposes, but like it's like if you push the revive super early so he then gets all of his passive unlocked, but then you get into like the last turn of the fight and actually get killed when you could have then used the revive when you actually need it, then obviously that's not the situation you want to be in. So it's kind of annoying that, yeah, it's like you want to get the perks for him reviving, but you kind of want to save the revive for when you actually need it. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I do see someone in chat said that Broly could be slot 1 with the domain up 55% against Gogeta. One thing I would say
Any?
is Gogeta, maybe that could have been also post super attack, but Gogeta doesn't hit like there's bosses that could do nearly 2 times the amount of damage that Gogeta could do, right? At this point.
Yeah, we unfortunately, despite being synced, have the funny little thing of the 2 hardest bosses not being on global,
Yeah.
which
So
kind of
that could
Yeah.
be a discrepancy between like how some people maybe on global feel
Yeah.
about Broly compared to like me and Truth going into like Bulma and the Goku Frieza fight, right, where there's a pretty big jump in the damage these bosses do.
Yeah.
Um,
Because yeah, we
but
get
yeah,
these
I don't
new
know.
units, and then we've literally got like Beast Gohan, Blue Gogeta, and then the Universe Survival Saga is only up to like stage 4, which is the Blue Evolution one. So, yeah, we're
that fight is definitely very challenging though. Like that's a legitimate tough fight. Like I think that's probably the hardest fight that would be on global right now.
okay.
The
I think
Blue
the
Evolution yeah, I think so.
depending on the team as well, I think the Cell Max stage 2 can sometimes be annoying because of the
Oh, it's
early
100%.
turns. Once you get past the first couple of turns, it's not so bad. But you've got even units like the Texay and Davigea, like turn 1, like he's doing some big damage to some of these characters. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I still think Broly's very good.
Mhm.
I just don't think he's like again, we're talking about like he's kind of like spread out, but at the end of the day, he's still like I would say in like the top 10 range of characters. So he's still a good character overall, and what he's providing to the team is a necessary role, like with the revive and everything. So I'll take it, right? One thing you could say is that you could just aim for the 12 key super attack as well, because you could actually potentially get more defense from the 12 key, like especially if it's a boss that you can't stun, you might as well go for the 12 key super attack. So even if you could have potential key struggles with him sometimes, the 12 key is still very good to aim for it too, because he still at least gets the 100% stats, right?
yeah.
With the potential of the extra 30%, so that's cool too. But yeah, that's our thoughts on Broly. Well, I guess we can move on to I think Gohan at this point, right? Which I feel like Gohan is a very more clear, easy to use character, right? When you really use him, you could just like kind of feel how oppressive he is. Which again, Broly isn't designed to be that character, but Gohan is, and it's just like, well, characters designed this way just like so most of the time, I feel like, especially if they're just like Dokkan SLRs and Carnival Rs, they just end up being better, right?
I think
And
that's a
again,
little bit of the issue with the Int Broly. Like, imagine Int Broly was swapped with the Tech Broly, and I think it would feel maybe like it wouldn't be so much of a landslide feeling, right? Because I think the Carnival Tech Broly is a lot better than the Int Broly, and it's like he would mesh better, like his design with what the Family Kamehameha unit is doing. They just seem like I don't know, pretty ridiculous.
Dude, I don't know. I've used him in a couple of events like earlier this morning, and I'm just like kind of blown away. It's just a thing of like, turn one, they don't look like too crazy, but if you are able to get a couple of supers, man, they could end off the turn doing like 20 million additionals.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty crazy. And then for the rest of the fight, they're invincible, and then they one shot the boss. It's like really disgusting, right? I don't think you were actually able to pull the Gohan specifically. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so I went all in with the stones that I had for Broly, and then that gave me enough of the pity coins to get one of the units. So I picked up Gohan with the coins. And I've used all my stones, rainbow tickets, all of that stuff just on the Broly banner. So picked up Gohan with the coins, because I guess we could talk about that a little bit afterwards, but I feel like he is probably, for a lot of people, especially with how super class is getting buffed like all the time, he's probably like the one you want out of the two, realistically. Because as much as Broly is great for his team, this guy just kind of fits in so many different places, and is insanely good, will be good for a while. And yeah, the Family Kamehameha obviously is super good. Very, very impressed with him. I always do my 55% showcases like when the unit is freshly pulled, so full level 1 links. And we did the whole like giving him the full 5 turns to charge up the Family Kamehameha on the trio team with like, orb changes like God Goku and Bulma active skill and all that kind of stuff. And at 55% he didn't get the crit. And he still did. We very almost got the damage cap. So it's like 55% level 1 links. I think he did like 97 million or something to the final phase of the event with the Family Kamehameha. So super cool unit, very fun. One thing I found really interesting, I don't know if there's been a unit I can remember in recent history that does it. It's just like a little thing that kind of surprised me, is because he gets that 77% buff with each super attack he does. Like on turn 1, his additional 12 key super, like his second super of the turn, had a higher attack stat than his actual 18 key super, because obviously he's raising attack with his super attack effect as well, and getting the 77%. So I think mine did something like, it was like 16 or 17 million as the first super, and then his additional was like 18 or 19. Then he does another one that's like 20. So yeah, for a 55% unit, like he's putting out tons of damage. His defense after supering is good. And then obviously once you go into that standby, he's another one of those characters that, like, unless you got really unlucky with like the orbs, which is hard with all like the orb changes on the team and stuff, that he's like basically invincible in standby. I think. I mean, I only tested him out with like, I think we got like, was it 6 orbs or 7 orbs, something like that, and he took double digits from everything on that particular turn. But I haven't yet tried him out against some of the craziest bosses, because I know his big thing is he gets a certain amount of defense per orb obtained, but he doesn't actually have any start of turn defense, does he? So if you don't get a large amount of orbs, like he's not going to have that high defense. But then obviously you back it up with the 77% damage reduction and guard, so he's looking pretty good. And I've been talking about it for, I don't know, it might be years at this point, but I really wanted a new top quality Dokkan animations like Family Kamehameha, so I'm definitely very happy with his fully charged active skill.
Yeah, these look great.
They look so good, and the art as well for the standby is super good. The only thing I would say that I'm a little bit disappointed about, I actually saw somebody made a tweet of it where they pieced together bits of the animations themselves, because the standby, if you get the right amount of charges but you don't get all of the Dragon Balls, it has that little extra bit where like Goten actually runs up and starts doing the Kamehameha with Goten, and that bit is cut out of the fully charged one, which is a bit of a shame. But other than that, like, yeah, absolutely fantastic, very fun unit to use. So yeah, very happy with this guy and how he turned out. He just seems just generally good. I can see the arguments potentially for him being the best unit in the game, but that's something we can also discuss a bit later on. But yeah, super good. Very happy with him.
Yeah, no, I think that's tough. I want to use him more, but I'm like leaning towards him being number one personally. It's just, I mean, if again, it's a thing where if you use him right, you one shot the boss at the end of the event, like 9 times out of 10. And then it's like you take 0 damage anyways. So you know what I mean? It's like you can say, "Oh, that
standbys where you have infinite defense are just so big, right?" Like it's crazy.
Massive. Just because it's like sliding him in slot 1, it just you take 0 damage, and then when you one shot the boss with his finish skill, you also take 0 damage. Like you could arguably say if you just one shot the boss before they attack you, like isn't that like kind of like a team protector ability in the sense that you just don't get attacked in the first place, you know? It's very stupid, but yeah. What are you thinking, Truth, regarding this Gohan specifically though? Like, do you have any other further thoughts besides what we discussed?
I mean, it's just like it's gonna be pretty easy to just throw him out there. He could either do a ton of damage in base. I mean, he can't go slot 1 in base, which I mean, I value that a lot because you know, just in 2024, how many bosses we've seen do only super in slot 1, right?
Yeah.
So like you have to be able to handle slot 1. You have to. And it's like we kind of see things like the Bulma fight comes out where it's got all these quirky things, and people are like, "Oh, nope, it doesn't count. Not a real fight. Doesn't matter." But then immediately we see some of the Bulma fight stuff is in the new Super Saiyan 2 Gohan fight. So it's like they take this stuff and they're using it for other fights. I think we would continue to see more of these bosses who, you know, the whole point of them is that they're super for like 6 million immediately. So it's like I do like a character who's like number 1 or like top 5 to be able to potentially deal with that, right? Like with Beast, obviously, you know, you have his standby or his active. Like with Blue Gogeta, you could use his active, right? A lot of characters have abilities to kind of deal with that, and that's what can make them the best. So like the fact that with the Super Saiyan Gohan, you could either have him in base be like a god slot 2 damage dealer, or go into the standby and then have him in slot 1, then with the, you know, 99 billion damage attack. It's pretty crazy. And like the unit just fits perfectly on like a million teams too, right? So and him being a Buu Saga makes AGL Ultimate Gohan and Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku way more relevant.
Yeah, I only realized that
really
when I was
too.
putting a team together
one thing
for
people
the
don't
was it like the all types? Like you have to use a team of all types for the memorable battles thing. And yeah, that's huge for that AGL Angel Super Saiyan 3 Goku, the fact that he needs a Buu Saga ally. And then this guy counts, right? Like that's really, really good for him, 100%.
Powerful. One other thing I would say about these bosses, again, when people see stuff that's like close to being gimmicky and they complain about it, it's like, sure, I guess, but if this was like a year ago, maybe, I don't know, man, because the point of the bosses this year is that they want to expand how these bosses are working and give them more different abilities in order to make each fight unique, and certain characters will be good in certain fights and other characters will be good in other fights, right? That's kind of been their goal for creating these bosses. And we're going to continue to see bosses that have these weird gimmicks to them, to the point where eventually it's going to be like every hardest man in the game will have their own kind of gimmick with them, kind of similar to what the Bulma fight's looking like. I mean, Goku and Frieza kind of had the gimmick to them where when they're under 50% HP, right? You know, each boss has their own special thing. Gohan, like Truth said, Gohan's critting now, and then he's lowering your ki by 6 with his territory skill. So there's going to be a lot of these different circumstances that I think people, you know, kind of trying to ignore them just because they don't like them personally is a little silly, in my opinion anyways, right? That's how I feel about it. But this Gohan, very good, very, very powerful character here. And I guess we talked about the events a little bit, so we might as well hop into this week's events since we finished talking about this character here. Which actually, before I continue on, I want to say Gohan's leader skill being 200% Kamehameha is so good. I feel like is that not like the best leader skill category LR has had? Like a 200% Kamehameha? Like that sounds pretty insane.
I mean, I guess they've got superheroes.
Currently, currently it's not the
yeah,
craziest. Kamehameha, like a lot of the Kamehameha categories actually aged quite a bit, right?
Yeah,
That's fair.
Like imagine if Gohan wasn't on Buu Saga and you couldn't use Ultimate Gohan and Angel Super Saiyan 3, right? Like if you look at the category, you know, you have like the UI Gokus. I mean, STR Vegito and Evolution Blue Vegeta and Blue Kaioken Goku, right? Like those would be like the main ones that turn on power characters.
Yeah.
But like once you dip beyond that, it's like you're gonna run Roshi with no Peppy Gals? Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could do Dragon Fist, but
yeah, you got like these 5-year LRs, but they're very much like dodge reliant now. Yeah, I made a team. I was trying to make a version of his team for like the all types mission. And yeah, it's kind of, there's a couple of the typings, especially where you're really lacking like a really top tier choice. Although funnily enough, you can throw Int Boo on there. Int Fat Boo. But,
You could actually, huh?
yeah, Kamehameha.
almost a physical Ultimate Gohan. No, I don't know about him.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Anyways, continuing on from there. No, yeah, I guess that's fair, right? The team right now is not great, but I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
there's
we
always
know
gonna
it's
be
a
units
category
that's
that's
just added
constantly
to
going to
that.
get buffs, right? So it's
Yeah,
the new
that's
Goku's,
fair.
Gohans, and so on.
I wasn't thinking about superheroes either, but yeah, superheroes is probably the best. Like, especially given how powerful it is still now, right? And on release, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll move on to these new fights that came out last night, and there's the Supreme Battle Spectacle fights with the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan and the Super Saiyan Goku for movie 8 and 9, respectively. Now they have some interesting gimmicks to them. I know, again, I saw Truth, you did upload, I believe, your runs for these events. What are your thoughts on them?
I think that some of the gimmicks seem good, but I think the boss's stats are just too low. Like the major celebration with this problem, whereas like people are like, oh my god, the celebration's so bad, there's no content. It's just content you could just like crush quickly and then you kind of like move on, right? Like the Goku, like, okay, these like the top characters are right now are definitely designed around like that Goku and Frieza fight, which like Global doesn't have.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you have these characters like Tech Broly can completely tank like 17 Golden Frieza, dodge canceling 3 million super boss right away, right? But when you take a character designed for like that fight, or you know, like EZA Tech Broly is, you know, doing 50 million attack stats to get around Goku and Frieza's damage threshold, but then you drop to like a regular fight that doesn't have crazy gimmicks like that, you will just crush it. Like if these fights don't have toxic mechanics because of how busted our characters are, they just get washed easily. And that's what it is. Like with no locking, no ceiling, no AoEs, no damage threshold, none of that. It's very difficult for the bosses to even be able to do anything. It's like we certainly are at a point where it's like either they go too much or it's shit. Like it's like there is no middle at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, I would rather they go a little too, like, leaning towards the too much, because at the very least, I feel like, you know, people wouldn't feel like they do now, right? In terms of these bosses, where even though we've had more stages this year than last year, from what I'm like seeing,
Yeah.
like you said, people just clear these stages and then they just don't do them again. Which, you know, I guess it's fair, right? They're adding these gimmicks to these fights, but again, I just like ran through both of the fights in like 10 minutes, like an hour ago, right before the podcast, and then I'm like, well, I finished them. Right? So
I mean,
that's a thing.
I think with the missions, it's definitely a bit more interesting because, right, I tried doing the joined forces mission against the Super Saiyan Goku stage, and I got up to like 26 minutes into the run when Goku was literally, he must have had like 1 HP and survived the turn. And the thing about him, I don't know what his actual numbers are, like his stats, but obviously he builds up attack every time he gets hit. And he got to the point where he was fully built up. And he supered my physical trio in slot 1 pre-super for 2.1 million damage. when he's fully built up, and that's obviously them like with their full passive and everything. With like obviously mine's only 55%, so when he's fully built up, like that damage that he does is quite crazy. But then I redid it with like the Broly team, and it was easy. So that mission definitely made it hard, but.
Yeah, because, okay, so Tech Broly, right, has an attack break at 24 key. So it's like Goku only attacks once per turn. So it's like if Tech Broly attacks first, Goku just doesn't, like, it's like you're stunning him, basically.
Yeah.
But, like, when I did the fight, that's what happened in mine, is that Goku just never even attacked, because he only attacks once per turn, and Tech Broly just attack broke him. So it's like, if he doesn't, like that fight sounds like the design would be much better if he was, so Goku and Frieza are scripted. I have never seen them not super before you attack ever. Like 100% of the time. Even the Beast Gohan fight, I've seen him not super before. But Goku and Frieza, it's like 100% of the time they always super before you attack. If this Goku was like that, that would be much more threatening, because like you said, he builds up 7% attack every time he gets hit, up to 150%. And then he supers for 2 million with a 50% debuff. So if you hit him a bunch of times and then he always supers before you attack, it is going to be very difficult to live that super unless you have one of these standby characters or you dodge it or something like that. But because they just let him attack wherever, you could take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it's really because he only has that one attack per turn. If he had like 10 attacks in the turn, then it'd be very much more likely that you get super attacked in someone instantly. Well, I mean, especially because he has 100% chance to super. If you had 10 attacks, there's like most of the time going to be an attack before you attack anyways. So then he just super you instantly. And
real quick, Minato, because I'm sorry, I just like the comments are. I've been holding back all stream, and like it's time to let go.
Go ahead.
No stones for Battlefield now. It's an extra Battlefield. The normal Battlefield already happened with the normal rewards. There is a completely extra one. Do people not even think? It's an extra one. It's extra. It's 100% extra, dude. Like the amount of people I've seen today say, "Oh my God, no stones for the Battlefield, dude. Jesus, what are we gonna do?" It's extra, bro. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm done seeing the Battlefield talk, man. Please continue.
What about this comment right here? I understand extra Battlefields have not given out stones in the past, but do you think they should have done this one on both versions, given the bad global schedule?
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that's happening is that, like, the sync was handled horribly. Yeah. That has like 100% agreement from everyone, right? Like they did it so bad. That is what is the current issue. And especially when I've seen people talking, that's the major issue, right? Like they thought, hey, let's drop a random filler banner back in April. Like if that had been Ginyu at the same time and then Cell Max would have dropped at the same time, Cell Max wouldn't have dropped 2 weeks ago on Global. That would have been an extra, like a, not a banner time. That is the issue.
Yeah,
more than the celebration itself.
It's really weird because they pushed Rose early and then they're like, yeah, no more. It doesn't make sense.
With it. Yeah. It was such a good idea, and they had the extra tickets and stuff like that. And then they just were like, okay, but that's like we did that, but then we're gonna slow down intentionally so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's super weird. Like it seems like they just left everything to the last minute, and then it's like we'll squeeze everything out in the last couple of months. When they could have, like, even back when they announced the sync, because bear in mind that was a year ago, right? The last worldwide celebration, and a bunch of us were talking in various points. We talked about it on the podcast before. It might have even been a time when you were on before, but like all they needed to do was make like every celebration throughout the year for global. You could have shaved like a week off of it to create this extra time towards the end of the year. But then all they did was drop Rose as a global first, and then get to the last couple of months and just be like, oh well, now we have all this stuff that we have to push out. So I think it was like 4 weeks in a row pretty much there was a banner like every Monday, and as a global player, like it was tough having a banner coming out basically every week. Like it was just brutal, and it was right after the anniversary and right before the worldwide celebration. So it was definitely so I kind of agree with what they were saying. I said the same thing myself, right, when I did my Battlefield run, it's an extra Battlefield, right? It reset earlier than usual. So it's not something that we didn't miss out on stones that we would have got otherwise. But at the same time, I can kind of see what that person is saying, right? Like where they've pushed everything out on global, it wouldn't like break their profit margins for the year to give everybody, because what Battlefield gives you, what, like 35 stones or something. So like, yeah, it wouldn't have killed them to like drop those like extra stones to everybody, especially on global. But yeah, at the end
I mean,
of the
they
day,
could probably give it at least like half, since it was like, what was it? I actually haven't done it yet. It was like 1 or 2 fights or something.
yeah, it
I
took
know
me
it was
by
like one, like
surprise because
there's
normally my Battlefield strat is to run like multiple mono teams. So obviously I saw the second fight, Tech BROLY is the icon. So I was like, right, I'll bring my extreme int team because it's weaker than my super int team. I'll save that one for one of the later fights. And then, yeah, you beat phase 1. I managed to scrape through phase 2. And then it's like phase 3 is AGL legendary Super Saiyan BROLY that doesn't AoE. So funnily enough, my extreme int team was not good enough. And then, yeah, a bunch of the other teams that I'd put together just weren't quite
Wait,
right.
when you lost, did it reset you all the way to the start, or did you keep your progress?
You continue from the AGL BROLY, yeah. So you could then just use your
so
other
like the
typing
phase
teams,
that you
I
died
guess.
at. Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, so I just in the end I didn't want to reset my entire Battlefield roster, but I basically just slotted in and out a couple of units, so that then when we got to that second fight, I then just used like the Tech BROLY team with Int BROLY as the sub lead, just like a movie boss's team. But I thought that was kind of cool. There was a different format, like having a long 9-phase fight with like every BROLY. I thought that was kind of cool, but it definitely took me by surprise the first time for sure.
Yeah. I haven't tried the Battlefield just yet, so I probably should do just like later today. But I think that we'll get into content more later. There is a special segment we have specifically talking about the content of the celebration. So I know everyone in chat's talking about that. We will be getting to that. I just roping back to the fights just real quick here. Hopefully that in part 3 we'll get fights that will satisfy people. Usually it's like, I feel like a lot of times in part 3 is when we get like the biggest fights, right? So I would assume we will get to the point where it's like we'll have a fight that's around like Goku Frieza Bulma level, and then after that we'll see people complain that the game is too hard and that they're power creeping the game, just like when Goku Frieza came out, just like when Bulma came out. So it's gonna be complaining regardless. Just get ready, guys.
You know,
it's one of those things where you know the fight is good when you see complaining about it. That's where it's like it's a legitimate fight. Like if there's no complaining about it, then that means the fight is probably just too weak, right? Like Fusion Zamasu is just right. Goku and Frieza, unfortunately, is like just right. I mean, they went a little too far with it, but they are giving us the characters to take it down. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that the teams are too strong now, especially with how good the design's been this year. We need to get like fights that would be like, oh my god, how are we gonna beat this? Because like you look at the Gohan fight and it's like, whilst he has like crits and like key luring, he just doesn't hit hard enough to challenge the teams like the way it should be. So yeah, no, I mean it's gonna be complaining either way. I'm so excited for the upcoming fights, so hopefully they will end up being very good. Well, one thing I do want to talk about as well is top grossing actually. And I know JP, we just got the top grossing, right? That was very quick. I saw that they changed it to 50 stones. Do you think that's cause Global is now getting 50 stones on the first batch, Truth? Or like, do you think they're trying to match it together?
I don't know. I'm a little surprised by the top grossing stuff. I don't see why they wouldn't just like combine everything, give it out at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I don't really get why they're handling it the way they are.
Yeah. Because like Global now at this point, since they didn't get the top grossing, they're not going to get it until like Monday or something like that. Because
like I don't like why not just like count them together? Like it doesn't make much sense to me. I don't get it.
I mean, it just like makes all it does is just like make it seem like the game's not synced, right? Even though it's like, sure, they said that only content and character releases will be synced from here. It just, why not, or like, even if I don't know, would you say if it was a thing where both versions would get top grossing at the same time, but JP has to wait for Global, like that would make GP players angry as well. So I'm not sure if there's a
true.
way they could truly satisfy, the player base, right? Just because of how they have to wait for global top grossing in a lot of circumstances. They made it the 3 countries to make it faster, but it's still going to take a longer time than GP, because GP is like, oh, top grossing hit instantly, here's the rewards, right?
Yeah,
which it is what it is there. But just want to touch up on that.
well,
I don't know like if it's going to be a permanent change, but we'll see.
I was going to say, one of the things I wanted to say about the events, one of the things that I think will be quite funny, is the Gohan, the Super Saiyan 2 one. Obviously, in the second phase, you have the Goku comes in, who dodges all of your attacks. So it gives you the opportunity for some funny shenanigans with characters that can stack. Like, I know people sometimes will like to do showcases in those stages where you like can't kill Zamasu and stuff like that, right? So like when I was doing the stage earlier for my first run, I took a couple of turns to just let a bunch of the Brolys get a bunch of extra attacks off, and then moved on into the phase 2 against Gohan. And then I think it was like the Tech EZA LR Broly, the active skill turn for the legendary Super Saiyan Broly with the AGL Broly domain up, and then he's hitting like an 87 million attack stat or something ridiculous because he gets a bunch of extra attacks off in that previous turn against Goku. So I think that event will be really fun to like mess around in with stacking units and teams that have a lot of stacking characters. Also, I will say I was kind of surprised with the Goku, Super Saiyan Goku stage, that we very often, I guess it's because we're mostly used to seeing it in like Super Battle Road, but it's not often you see difficult events where we've got like 4 enemies at the same time. I was kind of surprised with how much HP like each of the 4 enemies actually had. Although that again potentially goes back to I was doing the Joined Forces mission, so I only had like double 170 leads. But yeah, I thought it was kind of cool.
It's funny for me. I went in there as like Tech Broly, just like one turn the
Oh yeah, obviously, yeah. Tech Broly. Typically for me, Tech
Easy
Broly
Tech Broly.
got stunned by someone supering him in slot 1 straight away. So of course didn't get to AOE, which is unfortunate. But yeah, the Broly team manhandled.
I was talking about Easy Tech Broly.
Ah, okay.
Easy Tech Broly, just like one turn them all. It's very silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's all we really had to touch about the fights. Again, they're not really particularly difficult. They can maybe give a little bit of challenge if they catch you, but nothing really crazy there. So besides that, that's pretty much all we've got for the second half of part 2 in terms of the content. So
Yeah,
unless
there's
there's
like
anything I'm missing.
There was the movie event, like 2 stages, so you can get the skill orbs for Broly and Gohan. But I'm quite surprised. I think we talked about it last week, but it's like I'm quite surprised that we got a movie version of that Memorable Battles event, and we had the stages versus like the Gammas and stuff like that, which I think all of them were multiple phases. All of these ones for the celebration have all been single phase fights, so have been
those
easy,
were like legitimate good fights.
Yeah, like the Gamma's fight.
And the Vegeta Broly's fight came out. Like that was like, wasn't that like some of the harder like when the Gogeta fight came out? Wasn't that like
the Gogeta and Broly, because that was before like the second battle. Like once Trunks came out with Supreme Magnificent Battle, he was crazy, right? That came out before Trunks. And then the Beast Gohan fight was pretty tough as well, right?
I mean, because it's got locked, right?
Yeah, locking with Piccolo, and then Beast as 3 million double supering.
Yeah.
Right, like that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, those fights are difficult. It is a little disappointing, these ones, right?
Yeah, just single phase. I don't know if they maybe made these ones a bit easier, because obviously I do like the fact that they gave you the skill orbs for these units straight away, because obviously they started doing the whole thing with like the 8th anniversary where they dropped that anniversary battle event for the first time, and then obviously they did it for the 9th anniversary as well, so you could get the EX skill orbs for the headliner units, but they didn't come out until like the end of the celebration basically. So unless you wanted to throw on some EX skill orbs so you could replace them and obviously get those ones back, it meant that you kind of were waiting to put the skill orbs on those characters. So I do like the fact that they brought these stages out basically like the same day the units came out, so you could do your summons, pull the units, and then jump in, get these stages cleared, and then you had the EX skill orbs like ready to put on the unit straight away, which I thought was pretty cool. So I did appreciate them doing it that way.
Yeah. I guess one final thing we could touch on is EZAs. It seems like
Mhm.
we might be getting a super EZA. They had the TUR STR Broly featured on the Dokkan Fest banner. So I mean, him being there, I feel like makes it kind of clear that he's going to get an super Extreme Z Awakening. We haven't seen.
I don't know. Do you really think so?
I mean, I
I
hope
love
so.
it, but the reason I'm a bit skeptical is because so far they've been really following the theme hard, right?
Mhm.
And that Broly is from the first Broly movie, which was part 1.
Mm.
So that it just right now I'm kind of like, okay, like because I'm also wondering when it comes to like with this worldwide, I compare it to last year's, like worldwide to worldwide, like 1-to-1. This one has more content, but last year had better content, so it feels a lot better. But the EZA characters is where last year jumps up with like the sub EZAs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And part 2 did have a second batch of EZA characters: the Tech Future Gohan, the AGL Trunks and Mai. Who are the other two? The STR Trunks and
The
who's the last
Inzamasu?
one? The the Inzamasu, yeah. So those 4 characters EZA'd. So we'll need to see if in a couple of days there will be another EZA that'll drop. I am certain Trunks and Goten from the Broly movie are gonna EZA in part 3, but I think we're still sort of in part 2, for like the start of this next week, right?
I'm thinking what could happen is we can get a banner unit EZA, but it's like it would have to be the STR Trunks, that physical Gohan, and then the Tech Krillin. Like I was thinking they just group 3 of those into an EZA. But again, if they're doing the thing where it's like they only want to focus on only movie 10 during this like second half of the celebration, then would they do that? I don't know.
Yeah, because the only super EZA
So
would
I
have to
don't know.
be
Just an idea I had.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If we are going to get a super EZA, the list of like candidates is quite short. You've got that STR Broly. There's the LR STR Broly, which I've seen a lot of people sort of hoping for, which would be kind of cool.
It would be fire.
Yeah, he was the first. Imagine like he's the first
physical
LR
Broly.
that came out on Global. Like it would be super cool if he came out in like the big celebration that is the sync. And I did a thing talking about it because there is a little bit of they gave him exclusive skill orbs in the shop that you get with that currency that you get from the village story event. Because the units that get those special skill orbs, they gave them to the Int Broly and the Tech Broly, and they both got EZA'd in this celebration. And then they also put in skill orbs for the LR STR Broly. So it's kind of weird. I mean, I guess like why not? But it's kind of weird to give him EX skill orbs in this celebration, which like just those alone don't make him usable again all of a sudden in like the end game content. So maybe they're planning that, because the only thing is if the super EZA ends up getting not coming out until like the end of the celebration, are there even any like Bio Broly movie characters that could get a super EZA? And like movie 10 it'd have to be the Go Bros, right? Like there isn't really anyone else, like so, and I don't see them getting a super EZA.
Them and Tech Krillin are like,
because physical Goten and Trunks and Tech Krillin, they don't have their first EZAs yet, do they? So they obviously need to get their actual main EZA first. And then there's that physical legendary Super Saiyan Broly, but it just seems really odd, and like why would they super EZA him before the STR one, considering the STR one was the one that came out first. And he does have that weird special Redstone pack. Like he's the only one of those units, like out of the units that came out around that time, like with the AGL Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So you got like the physical full power Frieza, Int Ultima Gohan, and Tech Cell. Those guys aren't even available with the Redstone, but Broly has his own special like 2 Redstone pack that you can get the the non-LR STR Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. So I feel like there's a little bit of, you could say, like evidence for either of those STR Legendary Super Saiyan Brolys, the LR and the non-LR one, could potentially be getting a super EZA in the celebration, which would be awesome. I mean,
dude, if they do the LR, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would be so good.
Would be really crazy. It's just really weird that they're like, they just haven't, since Kid Buu came out, they haven't done one, and Kid Buu was, well, no, it was Goku Black actually. Physical Goku Black was the last one, right?
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
June? That's in June, dude. Like that's a few months already at this point. So I mean, we'll see what happens. clearly there's something going on there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if those EZAs come. I think they'll either one will be exciting. I think most people will be way more excited for the LR, right? I'm not sure if they would. Well, he EZA'd in 2020, right?
He got his EZA.
It's been 4 years.
It was the Broly Saiyan Day. He got his EZA, wasn't it? The LR, it's STR LR Broly.
Yeah, so it's been 4 years, 4.5 years, basically. So, I mean, it's definitely not out of the question, I would say, at this point. So, we'll see what happens. But I guess at this point, we could just move on to the trash takes, pretty much, right?
Already?
Because we've discussed all the content currently. Yeah. Is there anything else I'm missing? I don't think so.
I guess it depends. I'd be interested to say. I mean, I suppose I guess it kind of comes into the trash take part. I guess we were saying about talking about the content for the celebration overall. I guess because we didn't pick that take, I'd be interested to hear.
I mean, that would be the thing.
Yeah. So I guess before we go into that, then the only last thing I wanted to get at least Truth's opinions of as well, because obviously we've talked about it a little bit. But now that we've got the Part 2 units in the game, obviously we need a little bit more time to test them out. But how are we feeling about, especially with the Part 1 units, like where these guys are sitting in terms of who's the best unit in the game now? I feel like the one thing we can kind of agree on, which I guess we'll talk about in the content part a bit more, is at least I feel like all 4 of the summonable units for this worldwide celebration are at least all very good, which is definitely an improvement on last year, because there was definitely some very mixed feelings about characters like the AGL Blue Boys, Sword of Hope Trunks as well. Like, what are your thoughts overall, Truth, for like the 4 main units released during the worldwide celebration?
Oh, I mean, yeah, they're mostly perfect. Like when it comes to the summonable LRs, I mean, they're damn near perfect. I just want a little bit more time with Int Broly before I can make a proper assessment of him. But like that's like a huge difference. Like Sword of Hope Trunks was good last year, but I mean he wasn't the craziest. And then obviously we know the transformation issues with the Part 1 characters. So in terms of the summonable units, they're much better this year.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like
I think this year they've been handled very well. These LR designs,
and I feel like they designed the Part 2 units really well to like go with the Part 1 units, because obviously last year like Trunks and Future Gohan, you obviously could run them on the Blue Boys team, but it's not like they were designed to like fit with them like really well. Whereas obviously if you did get lucky and get all of the units, like Gohan just fits perfectly on the trio team, right? Like they can go in slot 1 before he gets the standby. They give him even more of a buff. And then obviously the Int Broly is a massive buff to the Tech Broly, like Movie Boss's team as well. So the synergy between the Part 1 and Part 2 units I think is really, really good as well. But yeah, I suppose, if you want to move on to the trash takes section, I can get the image ready to go here. Let's see.
Yep. So, I mean,
we normally like to let our guests, so we get Truth to read it out. All right, where is it? Here we go.
Yeah, well, we'll have Truth read out this one again. It's going to be a big section here.
It's going to be fun.
The main topic I talked about earlier.
This is the bit we know you guys want to see.
There's going to be a lot to say. A lot of interaction with chat, too, probably. So, Truth,
whenever you're ready,
you can go ahead and read the trash take.
Okay. But did you...
Oh, well, I'll reset
the one I linked in the chat in our chat.
Oh, yeah,
up on the screen as well, the DeJones one.
Well, I'll just put it in our chat real quick.
Okay. This worldwide celebration has been abysmal so far, except for the new unit kits and animations. Less stones, less mission-based content, less EZAs, long dry periods without any effort to engage the players. I see no reason why they go backwards, especially with the sync now here. Now, I mean, certainly a lot of what he's saying is not super off base, right? So, like, less EZAs. We didn't have sub EZAs this year compared to last year. Now, one thing I've noticed when people complain about the celebration is they just don't count Turles, right? Like people just pretend LR Turles is not existing in this celebration when comparing to last year, which is a huge issue. The long dry periods is not any different than any celebration. It's a very common thing that we have a week of an EZA character. This has happened in 100 of these types of celebrations. Like we've seen that always. So the long dry periods, I would say, is not correct. Unless you say every single celebration ever has had the same thing. That's not true. He said the kits and animations are good. Less stones, I believe, is also not correct, but I'm waiting to see once the celebration is done an accounting of what it is. Like we've seen a lot of people were upset today because some of the missions were changed for the Supreme Magnificent Battle. I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal because at the end of the celebration, I think the celebration will have more stones compared to last year anyway. So, I mean, that is something we kind of have to wait and see, like, if that's actually true. The less mission-based content is definitely true because last year, or more so that it's better mission-based content, right? Because last year we had several missions for the GT Legendary Goku event and the Legendary Vegeta event, which can be fun, right? You get your stones, you get your tickets, you get to use a different team or something like that. And there was also missions, Super Class and Extreme Class for Red Zone Cell Max, which is fun. And then there also was Terrifying Conquerors and Powerful Comeback against Red Zone Metal Cooler Core, which is also good. Whereas for this year, the mission-based content they gave us was the Cyberman event, which is not good. The Cyber, I did that. Those missions are not good, right?
That's so silly. Yeah, I see the point. Like, what I would agree with is definitely the missions, right? I think last year had them adding missions to older events and making us go back to complete those older events again kind of was fun, right? And this year we don't really have that besides the 7-man event. And in that situation, I don't really give them an excuse because there's not a reason to not do it. Like I don't see like it can't take like that much time at all to just like code in an extra mission like, oh, we're gonna tie this.
We know a little bit about how the code works for the game, right? When people post like the database info and stuff like that, like those missions would literally be a string of code that is use 6 characters from category ID here in event ID here, and that's it. Like literally one line of like one string of text to create those missions. Like that's how easy
it would not
it would
take that
be.
long at all.
Like every new unit that comes out, we've talked about this before, right? Like every celebration, even the filler Dokkan Fest celebrations, like every new unit that comes out, it would be so easy for them to just pick a bunch of the random events and just throw out like whoever that new unit's leader skill is, like a couple of different category missions spread across a couple of different events. Yeah, it would be so easy for them to do. For some reason.
And it's really, really odd to me. And I think a lot of people are jumping the gun because it's like, yeah, the stones are taken out of those missions. And, you know, if you just look at it face value, I think people are saying, oh, why don't you just keep the stones and just continue to add more stones to the other events that they're doing? But it's a thing of, like, we don't know what the end count is going to be. Because in my opinion, if it's a thing of, well, they may have taken the stones out of those missions specifically, but then by the end of the celebration, what if we have like an extra 200 or 300 stones anyways compared to last year? Then it's like, that's just going to be more beneficial at the end of the day because the main point of the stones is to summon. So if you have more summons anyways, then does it necessarily matter as much? I've seen a lot of people also say stuff like, well, completing these missions don't make me feel as satisfied or you know, like rewarded from doing all the difficult content. So why would I do the missions if the rewards are pointless to me? And there I could say that's fair, right? Because it's like, I mean, if you won't feel like you don't actually get like some stones from there. But I think the most important thing is that the amount of stones we get overall increases. That's like the number one thing I think that should be accounted for, which we won't know until the celebration ends. So
yeah, the stone, because I think a big thing with it right now is just that global has had so many LRs kind of like back to back to back to back to back. It's just more so like built up frustration from all that rather than like the celebration itself being as bad as people think it is. Because I think that's more so what it is.
yeah, and I think that's very fair, especially, you know, I guess like I know, like me and you obviously didn't go through like the whole global, like, you know, 7 Dokkan Fest LR banners or something like
Yeah.
in a month or 2 time span, right? So that's like that is very tough, especially for a free to play player. But again, I've seen you said this truth, but it's like this is more on like how they handled the sync rather than how the celebration is actually kind of like going,
Yep.
And I would say, the stones being like, if the stones are being put into like, I don't know, these missions during the celebration, or other events that are easier, like spread out to those other events, then it just makes it easier for these free to play players who maybe don't get some of the newer shiny units to still get the stones to summon compared to them having to clear some of the hardest stages in the game, right? Like, the easier to get the stones, the better, I feel like. But yeah, again, Ningen is like, again, I know you're like from the global viewing of this,
Yeah.
and what are your thoughts regarding like, this specifically in terms of like the stones? Would you prefer that they still kept the missions the same, or
I
what
think
would you
it's
think they should have done?
I think it's one of those things that like it's just and I know we like to meme about the community and like the people's reactions and stuff, and how we can kind of always see the same pattern of initial reaction, overreaction, like then there's some like backstepping or whatever. But like I think it's just one of those things you have to be a little bit patient and then see what the end result is, right? Because like you said, if they took these stones out of some of the missions, like if these are the same kind of missions we got last year, the difference is they don't have stones. On face value, like the day those missions come out, people are obviously going to be disappointed because it seems like we're getting less than last year. But if we get to the end of the celebration overall and we got more stones than we did in the celebration last year, then I would say obviously overall that's a net positive. So I mean, people will always have the argument of like, well, they could have just given us stones of them ones as well and given us even more stones. But we know that obviously there's only a certain amount that they are prepared to give out in each celebration. So I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if we get, at the end of the celebration, once it's all said and done, if we get more stones than we got last year, then I'm not really bothered about how they decided to distribute them, right? So if they changed a bunch of the missions so that those missions don't give stones, but then they throw in an extra event that we didn't get last year, for example, that then gives a bunch of stones and we end up with a higher total overall, then I don't really see how you can kind of look at that as a net negative, right? When the end result is we just got more stones than we did last year. So and it's one of those things. I get kind of I suppose it's one of those like, it's like the dopamine hit of like doing a mission or like getting a trophy or an achievement in the game, right? Like you want to do missions and see that you're getting more stones. But at the end of the day, as long as the total stones accrued throughout the celebration is still a good amount, then yeah, I'm not personally too bothered if they change like the delivery system, if you want to call it that, for those stones, as long as we're getting all of those stones by the end, right?
Like, if the amount of stones we get is less than last year, then yeah, I'm gonna be like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I think it's us jumping too ahead of what the end result is gonna be, especially we're right still in the middle of the celebration. There's still like 2.5 weeks to go, basically, right? If I'm not mistaken, or like at least like 2 weeks.
Oh, well, I mean, because it's gonna go until what, like the 3rd? So,
yeah.
I mean, it's more like 3.5 weeks. Well,
Yeah,
not 2.5, 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, 2.5, 3, right?
Yeah.
And then
This guy can't do
Diamond, 3.5 weeks.
Dude, Diamond, Sparking Zero, and everything is gonna come out like in that same week. It's gonna be so insane.
I have banners like the same day. I think it's gonna be first episode of Daima, Sparking Zero, Dokkan characters, and Legends characters all same day.
Oh my god, that's
that'd be crazy.
crazy. You guys, be prepared for that again. But yeah, I guess you could say just like if you're done with your part 2 summons or anything, keep in mind the Diamond's upcoming. So if that's something you might be more excited for, we'll see. But yeah, that also kind of ties into because like there's people who are saying they're like the sync. Then you could also add on to the fact that Daima's next, like, is going to be a banner. Like, it's going to be kind of crazy. But I mean, hopefully, again, I do agree that as long as we get more stones at the end of the day, I will be satisfied personally. But that's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Like the stones that we get in total.
I don't know if you guys had any other final statements.
Yeah, I'll just say like the
I think
same
there's
thing.
a delay.
It's like, yeah,
Go on.
what's that?
No, go on.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was Discord was looking a bit funny. I wasn't sure if I'd cut out because we'd have almost gone a whole episode without a technical difficulty. So, yeah, I think
someone in the chat was talking about the leaked banner for global return of Broly and Beast. I mean, that's not. What is that?
I'm assuming they just
what
mean
is
that that's just going to be the what would have been called the
that.
Tanabata banner, right? Which will be the global like Christmas banner. But we kind of already know that that's going to be a thing. We just don't know.
Yeah, I was.
It will be.
Yeah. I was thinking it probably still might be Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what I'm thinking Global's going to do is they're going to do, because you still have to get the gift cards, right? Which are the Tanabata strips, right? Those are usually gift cards. I think it's going to be like in November. It's going to be like the final global thank you celebration, and then maybe they give like a lot of rewards and stuff. Then they'll drop Roshi and Jiren in that like month time frame of November, concurrent to whatever else is going on in November, because November is usually a slow month anyways, and because it's usually like a Dokkan Fest, and then it would be the Hero Celebration, right? If I'm not mistaken. So it's usually like a slower month than usual. So I'm thinking that could be what we see. Because I mean, we know the end of October celebration, like Tech Bardock celebration, stuff like that, usually sucks, right? Like that celebration is really dry. So they can just like throw in those banners there.
Yeah, I mean, because the interesting thing is obviously what's going to happen for Global after this, because we know from what they've said already, right, like all the units that Global still doesn't have that are out on JP will be out by the end of the year. But I mean, that's still, you know, a good 3 months or so from now. So that means they've still got to fit those in somewhere as well. I wonder if they will, I assume they'll take away like the random filler like Halloween Dokkan Fest banner or something, I guess, that doesn't have a new unit, right? And just had like, I think that was when Majin Vegeta returned for the first time for Global, like the previous year. Was just that random like October banner. But now that we're going to be in line with JP, I don't know if they'll, it seems pointless for them to even do a banner like that while they're now also still having to try and figure out like where to squeeze in Jiren, because it's just Jiren and Roshi now, isn't it? The two like summonable, well, there's that Peppy Girls banner, I guess, but in terms of like the premium summonable units, it's just Carnival, Jiren, and then Dokkan Fest Roshi, right, that's missing from Global. And both of those releases have content tied to them, because that's the other thing that's kind of odd, you know, going back to the discussion about the content, is obviously Global, they released Tech UI in the midst of all these other banners dropping and everything, gave us the start of the Universe Survival Saga Blue Zone, and then they just stopped, right? And those last couple of stages presumably will come to Global whenever they decide to release LR Jiren. But for now, it just means we have that event like sat there only half like available, which is kind of strange. Because yeah, I wonder what it will be the case of how soon they will drop one of those units like from the Worldwide Celebration ending, because the Worldwide Celebration ends and we pretty much go like, was like a couple of days or pretty much straight after they release that October Dokkan Fest, don't they? And of course that will be coming out brand new on both versions at the same time. So interesting to see what that's going to be.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how they handle that. I mean, like, we could talk about it for so long, but
yeah, but yeah, I was going to say, going back to the take, like, what do you guys,
whatever they want.
What do you guys think? Because obviously we try and break down like specific wordings of the take and stuff like that. So things like, I guess we won't know until the anniversary is the celebration is like fully over, like the comparison with like the amount of stones and EZAs and stuff like that. But the interesting thing is the sentiment, which I have seen a few people say, I think it's even been mentioned in chat already, is obviously this whole feeling of like, with people being a bit disappointed with this worldwide celebration, the feeling that it's like a step backwards for the game, which obviously with the sync upcoming and like for the most part,
that. I mean, I think.
No.
Oh, I think that a lot of what the guy said, I mean, is true, right? Like some of it not, but like for the most part, the sentiment of what he said, I would say, is true. I don't agree that the game is going backwards. Like, I don't know where that is coming from. That more so just seems to me of like they dropped a lot of banners and I couldn't get all the characters, so like now I'm upset, unfortunately, which is just it's a gacha game, right? Like, I'm sorry, but like that's just how it is.
Yeah, I mean, especially with them pushing all the banners so close to each other, it's a thing of, especially during that time, you shouldn't expect to get every character, or like even like multiple characters, man. Like you should go into worldwide. You might get enough to get one character, like with the amount of stones they give out, especially if you saved up for it. But nothing's guaranteed, right? I guess outside of the pity that we got now, but nothing's guaranteed, right? Besides that, so
Yeah, exactly.
Next year, I think people will be, even if next year's like not as good as this year, I think people will feel better. It's gonna be a much better spot in Global Dokkan without a billion banners out, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it'll have been 6 months since the anniversary, right? Because it's free-to-play players especially. You kind of have, then we've got the worldwide and the anniversary. Those are your two big like summon event celebrations, and you have 6 months in between them instead of global getting the anniversary in July and then the worldwide celebration like end of August. Is a very small like space of time for global free-to-play players that have been saving up stones for the whole year to go crazy on the anniversary, and then it's like the worldwide comes out a couple of months later. So I think everyone will be in a slightly better place once the events are properly like actually the two biggest events of the year are separated by 6 months essentially. And then we won't have this same issue, because it's one of those things we always knew there would probably be a little bit of pain like setting up the sync. As we've said, they absolutely could have handled it way better, but the only way for them to do it was to have a bunch of extra units coming out to like fill the gap. And of course, once we finish off this year, rough time at this point in the game for global players, especially with all the stuff coming out, but now that it's once it's actually lined up, then it means we won't have to go through that again, and then hopefully everything will be a bit smoother once the sync is in place. So
yeah, no, and yeah, chat, I will say that Ningen is cutting out for me too. No worries.
Hooray.
Just Discord shenanigans, right? I mean, that's what happens when like I'm in the US, or the truth in the US, and then Ningen's over in the UK, right?
Woo.
But yeah, no, I hopefully again, this is just like it's a special circumstance all around with this worldwide celebration as well. With the sync going on, so hopefully at least next year it won't be that big of a deal, right? So that's a cool thing. But I think that's all we have to talk about for this specific trash take here.
Yeah, let's take a look at the poll. Oh, misclick. There we go. End the poll. Right, so shout out to everyone who voted in the poll. We have 67% W and then 32% L. Obviously, YouTube doesn't like to round up to 100 for some reason. So yeah, 2/3 agree with the take. I think, like we said, most of the points are relatively valid. I guess we need to wait and see till the end of the celebration to know exactly what we're looking like in terms of stone count compared to last year and stuff like that. But I've definitely seen a fairly overall sentiment of people being a bit disappointed with this celebration overall.
Yeah, we'll come back to this kind of idea when the celebration is done again, and we'll look at how it was right now compared to how it is going to be then, right? I think that'll be very interesting to see. Maybe a lot of people will change their minds. I mean, 2.5 weeks is quite a bit of time, so hopefully things. I think hopefully the player base will just be more satisfied in general.
Yeah.
All right, but from here, I think we'll go ahead and move on from the trash takes segments, and at this point, we'll read all of your donations and super chats that you guys gave us. Again, appreciative. We'll go ahead and see all the questions you guys are interested in hearing answered.
Okay.
Disappointed LR Omega Shenron didn't return? No way, man. People are trolling with that. I don't believe that. That's like an inside joke now. There's no way.
No, because that was the tweet that someone made to Grush, right, yesterday.
Yeah,
really?
like there's no way, man. I'm sorry. I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
But he hasn't
Bro,
returned on
Omega
global yet. How am I
destroys
going to
the
get dupes for him? My goodness.
Dude, look, he destroys the Bromo fight. Truth, come on, you know he's a top tier character now, right?
All right. Okay, so let us get the list up here. So yeah, I've got a few donations here. Shout out to Talus for re-upping his membership. Has explained to me why the rainbow tickets aren't even guaranteed SSR when you only get them with spending premium currency throughout the year. Yeah, because you get them from the memorial stones, right, which are based on how many stones you've spent. And what are your guys' thoughts on that? The rainbow tickets
Stones also aren't guaranteed SSR. It's just that you could do so many summons from them, right? Like you could do the 50 ticket summon if you have enough, and you're able to you'll of course most likely get an SSR during then. I think I had one 50 ticket summon where I didn't even get an SSR. Or at least I got like one in 50 characters. So I'm like,
Wow.
oh, that sucks. But no, it's like the actual memorial stones, they're not GSSR either. So once I get, these are special tickets. They're tickets that allow you to summon on the brand new banners essentially for free, especially if you're a fully free to play player, right? You're gonna be able to get enough stones for those tickets. I don't really see it as like that big of a deal per se, but it would be nice if they were GSSR. Yeah, and again, they're only 21 anyways. Usually, it's been the same thing for every other rainbow ticket, so I didn't really expect or hope for it to be any better than what it is, until they would actually potentially change that up. So there we go.
Yeah, it would be nice, but it's just honestly, it's just nice the fact that you have that opportunity to summon for the new units, because once you've reached a certain point, like the memorial stones are kind of funny because it's like the more you spend on the game, or like the bigger a whale you are, the more of those stones you get. But then the more of them you get, like realistically, the less of them you need, because like you get into a situation where like all of the units on that banner that you can use the tickets on, you potentially don't need any copies of them. Like I think this is the 3rd year in a row where I base it on the actual brand new banners. Even if you're not going to get anything guaranteed, I do like that as an alternative, because otherwise, like I say, those tickets are largely pointless for a certain subsection of the player base, right? So getting some free summons on the actual new premium banners, I think, is really good.
Another good thing is that like with the tickets, it's not like having a guaranteed SSR will change the chances you get the units anyway. So it'll like, maybe if you're summoning on a carnival banner, you'll have like a better chance of getting an unfeatured LR, but that's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean it's a slightly higher percentage, but yeah, I mean during my Broly summons, the number of Vegito fusions I got, and I was just getting like the GT duo and physical Goten and Trunks like left, right, and center. So even if you're getting a guaranteed featured SSR, it's not necessarily going to be the one that you want, right? So it's just nice to have that extra option, I guess, to get summons on the banner. So, but yeah, shout out to Talus for that one. Shout out to Cricket, Cricket with the $2 super chat. Just wants to say that he doesn't like Minato, which is
what a terribly designed, awful character. I hope he never easy is.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, drama queen. Sure.
Okay.
Renato's favorite unit, low key. All right, so we got JC Gamer with the $5 super chat. Says the second Battlefield was a huge L, considering Global is severely short on Battlefield memories, and we are short 250 to 300 stones from skipped battlefields. Because yeah, I'm not sure exactly how that stacks up, because to catch up to JP, there were a couple that were skipped. Is that right? So it's
yeah, it's
less
I mean, it's
rewards
at least
overall.
how many is it? I mean, do you know the exact number of skip battlefields?
I think it's 5.
Okay.
Something like that. It's like 5, I think. I don't think it's like Like it's a couple months, obviously, but it's not like 10 months or something.
Yeah, because I think
Still, I mean,
you only get around
get
30
it,
stones,
but-
right? I think. For Battlefield?
I don't even think it's the stones that are the issue.
Yeah.
It's
the
the
memories as well,
memory.
yeah. It's
Because
the big
the
thing.
fact that because the thing about the stones is that you're still gonna have, like, if they didn't skip the battlefield, you're still gonna have the same amount of stones you would have gotten from Battlefield as, like, you know, you would if they didn't do the sync, right? It would have still been the same amount of stones given. But them pushing up the characters and EZAs that are released without proportionally giving the amount of Battlefield currency is the biggest issue, because it's like, well, that currency that JP got, you are getting the releases at the same time as GP now, but you're not getting the amount of currency GP got, right? So I think that's the bigger issue at hand. Release, right? Release a banner, so you should get more stones at the same time. So sure, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely need to up the. I think because the issue is the same on both versions, isn't it? Like they need to up the Battlefield memories that they give out, because we've essentially reached the point that even if you've been doing Battlefield since day one,
Proton said 7 battlefields skipped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a lot.
Also, the stream apparently is lagging very badly.
Yeah, I can't see why. Everything seems okay on this end, but not sure what's going on.
Well,
rips.
But yeah, 7 battlefields, decent number though. I don't know. Hopefully they make up for, at the bare minimum, the currency.
Yeah, I can't. Like I say, I can't see any issues on my end, but it is what it is. I can see the comments in the chat. But yeah, shout out to JC Gamer. We got 2 more here. Talus with the $10 super chat. Prediction for the rest of the year: Garlic Jr. next as the October Dokkan Fest, then Daima Goku, and whoever the new villain is, then Roshi, then Heroes, then Carnival Jiren, new unit, then Thank You Banner, then GT for New Year Dual Dokkan Fest. I mean, yeah, the end of the year is definitely going to be packed. I know Truth mentioned it earlier. So do you think this is going to be one of those like UI Goku situations where we get the Daima content like as soon as the episode drops, essentially, or like the next day, basically?
Yeah. So I think like a lot of the end of the year could look like a lot of Daima stuff. Like I don't think we're gonna get like, you know, Goku mini Dokkan Fest and then all right, we're done. Like it's probably gonna be a lot of Daima stuff constantly. I don't know where exactly the 2 are gonna slide in for global. Roshi and Jiren seems. Yeah. I don't know. But because there's not like room, like it's already gonna be jam packed, right? Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Roshi might just have to be introduced on global when he returns on GP.
That probably would be the best way to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's all I can
and
think
just
of.
allow him to be picked up with red coins. Like that would be a good way, I think, to kind of do it.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done
that would be fair, right?
Yeah, before, because that would be useful. Because he's a unit.
There is.
Go on.
I was just gonna say there is quite a bit of content for that Roshi celebration, though. That, like that would need to slide in as well. That's why, like, it's like global is still gonna be like absolutely jam packed. Like the next time global is like, okay, like we're chilling and breathing, is like next April. The middle of April is gonna be boring or something like that's when it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm still thinking Jiren will drop in November, but maybe they save him for December or something. Who knows, man? Because they said by 2024, like the end of 2024. So
that is so crazy that they drop the start of the event and then just go, all right, see ya. We'll come back to it sometime.
Yep.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, we literally have the first 4 stages, and then that's it. Just that for now. So,
I mean, they should have just not dropped Jiren. I mean, not Jiren, Topo. They should have just dropped Jiren, and then make Topo come back. Like it's just like how I think Roshi's gonna introduce in global when he comes back. Do the same with Topo, right? Like
Yeah,
make that their
exactly.
first introduction, and then that just saves a banner time, right? Compared to like a Dokkan Fest, like or a Carnival LR, right? It's kind of different, you know, much longer time to wait.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's definitely going to be jam-packed on Global 2 for the end of the year, because we're going to be getting all the same stuff at JP at the same time, and then they've still got to fit those other two characters in there somewhere. So it's one of those things, we can come up with all the ideas in the world for how they could or should do it, but seeing how they handled the lead up to this last few months, right, where they just kind of didn't really do anything and then just chucked everything out back to back, I'm not expecting... I feel like there is literally, they're just going to drop these banners in the middle of like whatever else is going on in the game at the time. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then we do have a $10 super chat here from Weeb of Class. It says, shout out to my new favourite banner unit, Tech Videl. Going to get a lot of use when Dimer units start dropping in the game. So that is a good point. We didn't really talk about her at all. Obviously the banner unit from the BROLY banner. I did manage to pull a copy of her, but I have literally only just finished like farming her super attack and awakening her, so I haven't actually used her yet. So Truth, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Tech Videl.
Nah, the only thing I wish is that they maybe could have allowed her to work a little bit better on that movie hero team. Like maybe because she is an Earthbred fighter support, right? But like she's not, like that's kind of like Gogeta is the leader of that team. I think rather than Dragon Ball Seeker and Earthbred fighter, she should have been movie hero and Earthbred fighter support to allow her to synergize better with Gogeta. Because right now Videl doesn't really have a place to be used. That's the issue. Like it feels similar to Videl with like Krillin and Android 18. Like the Krillin and Android 18 were solid, but are you taking off, you know, LR Int Evolution Blue Vegeta to run Krillin and 18? I feel like it's going to be a similar thing with this Videl. Like you're taking like a character of that level off to put Videl on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. Videl seems like she'll be fine, right? If you get her built up, she'll like be useful, but there's just going to always be better options like on these teams, right? Specifically.
They probably should have just made the banner unit like a Super Saiyan Broly. Like I know another one, but like what if he had just like insane support, right? You know, I mean, so like links for him wouldn't really matter. He's just support defense for the Brolys. Like that would have been way more meaningful, I think.
I know it's that movie 10, but I think they should have just dropped a Bio Broly.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
like why not?
Yeah, banner unit Bio
because
Broly.
That's a new caracter.
Yeah, because like part 3,
he might not even get a character unless they drop like.
Well, yeah, because like
I mean, they could do like a part 3 free to play LR Bio Broly.
No, but yeah, part 3 will have because we haven't had one.
Another banner, Carnival LR Bio Broly. Do it.
God.
Get him in.
Carnival LR Bio Broly. What if they make him yellow coin LR with the pity system as well?
Oh God.
Like I mean, I could see a yellow coin LR would be interesting, I guess, right, with the pity system as well with it. Because that format is more enticing for people to summon on, and it's like at the end of the celebration, and it's also, you know, Bio Broly is cool, you know, but I'm not sure how many people will summon, but we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. I think banner unit Bio Broly would have been kind of fun. Could you imagine? We haven't had one for a long time, so imagine if part 3 we get a new Prime Battle LR and it's Bio Broly. Get to do that beautiful 777 medal grind that we all enjoy so much just for a LR Bio Broly. That'd be great. But yeah, I'll have to test out the Videl. I haven't used her yet. I've only just got her awakened, so we will see. But shout out to Weave of Class. We have Bop Boy with the $2 super chat says, "Yo Truth, where is the Trio plus EZA LR STR Vegito video?" So
in the works.
Okay, there you go. You heard it right here. And then we have Talus with a 5 super chat. Says, "Truth, tell them that Physical Angel Frieza will be the best EZA TUR."
We'll see. Well, I mean, we'll have to see what team he's gonna be on. Like, where are we running him?
Yeah, he's kind of weird with like his links, and he's like a Frieza without big bad bosses or Thirst for Conquest.
And that, like, the
Like, I
Reps
don't
of
know,
Universe 7
he's
team
just a weird character, right?
Yeah, like that Reps of Universe 7 team is so stacked now. It's like, who would you take off to, like, put him on, I guess? I mean, if his EZA is insane, then I guess you could find a reason to make a space for him on the team, right? But yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be good though, regardless. It's just the thing of like, yeah, like Truth said, where will you use him specifically? With how his links are, especially. I mean, maybe if it's like Angel Frieza and like Super EZA, Goku and Vegeta come out, like would they even link that well? I don't know. Well, he still links well with Wicked Bloodline regardless, even without Big Bad Bosses or Thirst for Conquest. So maybe they're saving them for like a Wicked Bloodline upcoming celebration, I guess would be the best idea.
But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I know Talus is a big fan of Physical Angel Frieza, so very much looking forward to his EZA, I know. And yeah, hopefully he will be good, but I guess we have to wait and see. So yeah, that's it for the super chats and donations for this week. I appreciate all you guys for helping to support the show. And yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, again, thank you everyone for stopping by. This would be it for this week's episode. Actually, we got one last super chat donation here. Their first super chat here from MX Tome. I would like one copy of Omega for collection.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, sure. Sure.
There you go. Well, hopefully Omega comes back so you guys can use your carnival coins on him, right? Sure, definitely. Will be a great time. W in chat, yes. So for anything for now here. Again, thank you everyone for stopping by. We'll be live again next week for, I think, part 3 might be out at that point, or we'll know what part 3 is like going on. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Later, Gators.
Bye.